What is up, all of you awesome and amazing people on YouTube? This is the Old Coot here. Today we're going to make traditional hazelnut gelato with a twist. Instead of using sugar, we're going to be using allulose. This is Hoosier Hill Farm. That's their version. Delicious. It tastes just like sugar with no funny aftertaste. The reason why I'm making it this way, my hazelnut gelato, is because I'm trying to avoid sugar. And I couldn't find a good gelato that was sugar-free or that did not have sugar or that weird kind of aftertaste. So that's why I'm just making my own. Hopefully some of you out there will try this. It is pretty low on the glycemic index. So if you're like a keto person or maybe diabetic and you want something that just does not have sugar in it or any added sugars, this might be something that you might consider talking to your doctor about, seeing if it's okay and all the good stuff. But anyways, let's get into it. So first thing I did was I already pre-cooked my raw hazelnuts. Very important to, if you can find raw hazelnuts, even better. But if you can't, you can just use toasted hazelnuts. It's totally fine. The way I toasted mine was a little small oven like this, right? Middle rack, so middle shelf on a little tray, 350 degrees for 15 minutes. Check them. See how they are. Like, taste one. The more intense the flavor of the hazelnut, the more intense the flavor of your final gelato or ice cream is going to be. So what I did was I threw them back in the oven for about 2 minutes or so just to kind of get them like nice and toasty. But this is about how they should look. That's how the shells should look on the outside. Or not the shells, sorry. The skin should look on the outside. They've already been shelled. And basically this is what the hazelnuts should look like when you take them and you peel some of that shell. So let me show you how it all looks. There you go. So basically when you take out the peel on the outside, that's as toasty brown as you want them to be, is something like this color right there. So just for reference, if you burn them, you're going to get a bitter flavor in your final product. So try to just go in 2-minute increments. Like, throw them in for 15 minutes. See how they taste, throw them in for another 2 minutes, and you have to just check them and do them to your liking. But this is how I like them. This is where we're at. So what I want about 400 grams. We're measuring everything in grams today, by the way, because weight is more accurate than cup sizes. At least I find that to be true. So what I want is about 400 grams of hazelnuts. So I'm going to go over to my scale, right? Got a good scale here. I'm going to go ahead and hit this, zero it out, right? So we're at 0. Take my hazelnuts over. Toasted. By the way, hot tray, wood thingamajiggy on the bottom, just so you don't burn or crack your marble or your tile or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in. And peels and all. And boom, we hit 408 grams, which is totally fine. You could be a gram or two over. You could eat one. There you go. Give it a good taste. I could eat 7 more if I wanted to, but that's fine. So anyways, what I'm going to do is, these are going to go into a food processor. And let's see if I can get this right. And what I want to do is I want to add, we're going to add our salt now for the entire gelato mix. So I'm going to add 1 teaspoon, teaspoon. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of salt. You can use whatever salt you want as long as it's 1 teaspoon. So we're going to throw this in here. What the salt is going to do is it's going to help to pulverize our hazelnuts. Basically what we're making is a hazelnut spread. The finer and smoother you can grind this down, the smoother your final gelato will be. I kind of like mine rustic, so I leave it a little, not chunky, but just, it's okay if there's a bigger piece or smaller piece or whatever inside, it's totally fine. So I'm going to pulse first. Kind of just make sure that everything's blending in there. It's always a good idea to have a good spatula on hand, right? This is the Dehydrator. I will put links to all the stuff I'm using, by the way, all the tools down there below in the description section, so make sure to check that out. But after I pulsed for a little while, now it's time to just turn it on and leave it for about 30 seconds or so. See, and right about there, as you notice, things started to slow down, right? So this is when you want to go in there and scrape down the sides. Make sure you're getting even blending and distribution all the way throughout your mixture. See all this powder on the side right here? We want to make sure that we scrape all this down, get all this in there. The smell right now is just insane. This is fresh toasted hazelnuts that are just, the smell is amazing. It smells like a nut house, which is pretty much what my house is like most of the time. Okay, anyways, hit that on button again. And I'm just letting it go a little bit more. See how I'm getting more rise now on the sides? I'll go ahead and take this off. See how much it rose on the sides? So again, I want to go in there and scrape down the sides again. And again, we just pull this off. Very important to have a good high capacity food processor. Our final, if you're curious, our final gelato amount is going to be somewhere in the ballpark of around 3.5 quarts. 3.5 liters, 3.5 quarts, somewhere around there. So that's why you want a good high capacity food processor. If you're going to make a smaller batch, I'll let you cross divide, multiply, conjunction, junction, what's your function, to figure out how to break down the recipe to smaller amounts. But basically, I'm giving you the basics for a 3.5 quart gelato recipe because my ice cream maker holds 4 quarts. And I want some room in there for everything to mix and mingle and for some air to incorporate inside of the gelato. Very little, but just enough so that there's room. Anyways, hit this back on again. Letting it go. Obviously, we're doing this in real time. But again, now is when you want to kind of see that puff of steam. See that steam coming out of there? That's what you get when you do fresh toasted hazelnuts. So I'm going to let this go a little bit longer. Scraping down the sides. Very important to do this. Like I said, the smell, it almost smells like fresh roasted coffee, but it's just, the smell is just incredible. Okay, so hitting that again. And again, I'm just letting it grind and grind and grind until I start seeing like a little bit of a paste form. So now I'm starting to get a little bit of a paste. I'm gonna go ahead and stop this. Okay, so I've just started forming a little bit of a paste down there. See, and there's more steam coming out from the hazelnuts, right? Literally just took them out of the oven. So scraping again as we go, right? And it's very important to do this. It's a tedious process, but believe me, your hazelnut gelato will be the talk of the town, the taste of the block. You get the idea. Everybody will want some, trust me. Okay. So I'm going to hit this again, turn this back on again. See, so now, let me pause this for a second. So now, as you can tell, as we're pulsing away or as we're grinding away in the food processor, instead of the hazelnuts rising up the side, like up the sides like they were, it's rising up less and it's falling in more, which is totally fine. You still want to scrape to make sure you get all this incorporated. See how the sides have already fallen from this side to that side, let's say. So I just want to make sure that everything is grinding at the same pace. That's why we scrape down the sides. Evenness, even smooth texture is what we're after. That's the name of the game. But here we go. We're going to hit this one more time. Doo-doo-doo. There you go. So you're going to get that. You're going to get some moving. We're just trying to get this into that ball. Okay, there we go. There we go. So now here's the next phase in the grinding processes. You're going to start getting this ball, right? This ball on the side, which is totally fine. And again, it's starting to turn into a paste, right? This is the early stages of the paste. So now I can just give it one more final scrape, right? Make sure I got this down there. One mistake a lot of people make is they'll put liquid in here. And if you put liquid in here, you're just going to get a suspension, what's called a suspended thing. So what's going to happen is you're going to have like little bits and pieces of hazelnuts that are going to be floating around in like a watery sauce or whatever you decide to put in here. So that's why it's important to let the oils that are in the hazelnut do their thing and turn this into a paste as opposed to a liquid and a pulverized solid, if that makes any sense. This will give you a more smoother consistency. So I'm going to hit this one more time. We're almost there. We're almost there. I'm just going to let it go. See, the ball is forming. Everything's reincorporating itself nicely, so there's no real need to scrape down the sides just yet. Let's see how all that's getting incorporated in there. See, this is what I'm curious about. See how this isn't getting incorporated in? So that's when I want to hit stop. So I want to incorporate this back into the main mixture, and that's when you would go ahead and go back in there and re-scrape again. So, and if you notice, you're starting to get a little glistening. I know it's kind of hard to see on camera, but that little glistening means it's starting to turn into more of a paste now. And that's what I want. I want to get it as fine as, you know, I can without getting too ridiculous. But see how much more that's turning into a paste. It almost has the consistency of like a hazelnut spread, quote unquote. I'm not going to mention any names, Nutella. But anyways, it's kind of looking like that. Basically, I'm making my own Nutella is what's going on here. But without the chocolate, obviously. I mean, if you want to do a chocolate hazelnut gelato, you can totally do that. I'll show you how to do that maybe in another video. We just reviewed some great products yesterday, some supplements that were powered or performance cocos, flavor mix. You know, you could try something like that. Tasting delicious. I'm going to let this go for about another 30 seconds. It's basically hazelnut butter is what I made. But I'm going to hit it for another about 20 or 30 seconds. And that's good enough for me. Once you notice the machine is like straining a little, it's time to cut it off and you're good to go. But anyways, with this being made now, I'm just going to let this sit and just chill out for a second while I prepare everything that's going to go into the main ingredients, basically, which is milk and half and half. You could use heavy cream if you want. Like if you want a little more richer, a little more smoother on the palate, that kind of vibe. But for this recipe, I use whole milk and half. Can you use other milks like almond milk, soy milk, you know, non-dairy, whatever? That's a whole nother video for a whole nother day. But for now, let's just follow as close to traditional Italian recipes we can possibly get. Okay, so 4-quart saucepan, right? Very important. This is an AllClad, indestructible. I love their cookware. Like I said, I'll put a link to this and everything else we used today down there below in the description. But what I basically want to do is I want to measure out, it's going to be a two parts milk to 1 part half and half mixture. And since I'm aiming for 3.5 total liters or 3.5 quarts in the final gelato mix, remember 400 grams has already come from the hazelnut spread that we just made. So what I want to do now is I want to measure out my milk and my cream. So remember, 2 parts milk.